Hello everybody, my name is Cody bringing us yet another video, and in today's video, we're doing a fun tier list that I just made, literally just now actually. I'm gonna say like 5 minutes ago, as if I was like sitting on this or something. No, I literally got home and was like, I'm gonna make a video. What do I wanna make it on? I made an anime video, One Piece and Dragon Ball quiz stuff. I talked about the Paladin a little bit, because another one of my loves, anime, and then D&D. Now I thought about another one of my top three loves. Not just, it is Matt Mercer specifically, of course. He is my number one favorite voice actor, but it is voice actors in general. So I thought it'd be really fun if I made a tier list of some of some more of his iconic roles. I say iconic, but not all of them are going to be an iconic. Some of his more, his bigger, more popular roles, or at least roles that he had in like bigger settings, and kind of how I'm ranking them, which is just gonna be a tier of 5. Basically, it's just gonna go from is that Matt Mercer? It's basically like roles that are like, you know, just instantly when you think of the character or you think of him, you immediately think of like one of these roles. And now, of course, everybody's gonna be different because maybe somebody like I would put Jotaro in up there, and is that Matt Mercer? But somebody might put Sinbad as in there as Matt Mercer. Somebody might put Striker up there, just like, and other people might put Striker all the way down as really, like, really. That's like the category of like, really he voiced him. It's kind of like you either like kind of forget that he voiced him, or maybe it's like, that's cool that he voiced him. He was kind of like a smaller character, but of course it doesn't matter the size of the character, whether it's Jotaro being the main character or Leorio being kind of like the side character who's only in some of the seasons, or even being like Seijiro, who's like kind of a side character and you get to hear talk not that amount, or even funny enough, he's actually Espio the Chameleon in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. So kind of going through them, you've got from Demon Slayer, you've got Kaguya, the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps. Next, you got Levi from AOT. You've got Yusuke from Persona 5, Espio from Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Jotaro from all 3 parts that Jotaro, or all 4 parts that Jotaro Kujo is in for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because he is Jotaro in part 3, 4, and 5, and he'll probably reprise a role in part 6 when it gets dubbed. I don't see why he would randomly just step down. Trafalgar D. Law in One Piece, Seijiro in Sword Art Online, Leorio in Hunter x Hunter, Crom, who all of them I did kind of choose like more serious picks and things that like they were recognized from. I saw that Crom was T-posing and I was like, gotta choose that one. Hit from Dragon Ball Super, Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil. He's in a couple of them, so he's the same voice in all of them. Sinbad in the Magi series. All of them, from what I can tell, if I'm not mistaken, he is Sinbad in all versions of Magi. If there is Sinbad, he is Sinbad, I believe. So, McCree in Overwatch and whatever they rename him to. Fairy Tail, he's Silver Fullbuster, which if you don't know, that's Gray's dad. That's kind of cool. Striker in MK9, and lastly, he is Yamato in Naruto. He's also the voice of a couple other characters in Naruto, but I just want to choose Yamato, just because that's probably the more recognizable one of them all. He is technically Pain, and the orange-haired guy that Pain is kind of modeled after. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And I kind of chose Yamato over Pain, even though Pain is super recognizable for it all, because technically Pain is also voiced by Troy Baker and I think Patrick Seitz, if I'm not mistaken. So there's actually like a couple of voice actors who did Pain, just because there's like 6 or 7 different Pains. So it's kind of like, I could put, oh yeah, he voiced Pain, but like I don't know the specific one or ones that he voiced. So didn't want to choose that for that one. And of course, he's other characters in a lot of other things, but I just chose these, I believe 16 I chose here, just because they are some of his, bigger animes and like some of his kind of bigger roles in some of the anime as well, because because of course, got to do that. Yeah. So, is that Matt Mercer is instantly recognizable, just not even needing to hear the voice. You just think of Matt Mercer or that character. Iconic is that kind of like this is something that he is very known for, to where it's like, if you're kind of like discussing with someone and it's easy to bring up, or when you are watching the show, you go, oh yeah, yeah, that's Matt Mercer. When with like, yeah, that's him. That's kind of like the, you're watching it and you're hearing the voice and you go, oh, what is that? And then you realize, oh, that's Matt Mercer. Oh, that's him. That's kind of being like, yeah, it takes you a little bit of like, maybe he just doesn't do, maybe no, it's not that it doesn't do as well of a job, but it's kind of that like in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, I'm liking this character, and then like later on you look up and you realize, oh, okay, that was Matt Mercer. Oh, that's him. That was him. That's cool. And then it really is, oh, really? That kind of like lesser role, or just not as like ingrained when you think Matt Mercer, or when you think the character, you don't think him, or that like link between those two. So it's kind of like that a little gray area, I guess. Of course, putting something down here, all this is objective, of course. Putting something down here in the really category, it doesn't mean that I don't like the character, or I think that Matt did a bad job as a character, because I don't think that Matt does a bad job as as any of these characters. It's just personally, when I think of Matt Mercer, I don't immediately jump to that character. So right off the bat, I don't really. I mean, I feel like I put him in. Oh, that's him. I was gonna put him in really, but then I thought, like, I don't really think like Matt Mercer, Yusuke in Persona 5. I never really think that, but because of Smash, oddly enough, I do kind of realize it, just because when he was like first put into Smash, Matt was like really excited, because this was him like as Yusuke and as Chrom, of course. When they first got into Smash, Matt was super ecstatic for it, because finally his characters, especially Chrom, who like a couple of times kind of got shafted, especially in his first one when he was kind of in the trailer but he wasn't the character. Like he's always been that kind of like push character, and finally getting in it with Chrom. But especially with Smash, Chrom like puts it. I'm gonna put him in iconic. Like Chrom really kind of knocks Yusuke down, just because like I liked Persona series, but I never think of Yusuke and Matt. I always am like, I'm always more distracted with like some of the more bigger main cast. If you don't recognize this like picture of Yusuke, he's the one who like wears like the kitsune fox mask, if I'm not mistaken. So that might have like a better image in your head if you can think of what I'm talking about. So there's nothing against this character, against Yusuke or anything like that. It's just I don't personally link the two right off the bat, but I do link him with Chrom, especially with Smash being such a prevalent thing for me. I love the whole Smash series. It's been one of my favorite game franchises since I was a kid playing it on the GameCube, because that was my first one, was Melee, and then I played 64 a little bit later, and then Brawl to Wii U to the DS, all the way up to Ultimate now. I mean, they're all great, and that's where I first really heard his voice, because I didn't really play a lot of the Fire Emblem games, and then I started doing some stuff with Fire Emblem, so always singing with that, and how much life, how like big a fan of Matt Mercer is just with Chrom and with everything. It really does like encapsulate it, and thinking of like when I think Smash Bros and I go to Chrom or something like that, it is really easy for me to link Matt Mercer with Chrom, so definitely something that is just like an instant connection with me. Like some more, I'm gonna try to like start with like the lower tier ones. Striker. Maybe it's just that kind of feel of like never been too big a fan of the Mortal Kombat series, and also because I believe he was only the voice of him in MK9, and Striker, spoiler, Striker dies in MK9. He gets like blown up or something, or like lit on fire and dies. I don't even remember. He's not really in much else, and it's not like this was something when playing the game I could really recognize, or really anything. It wasn't until like I was kind of looking through his IMDb, or his behind the voice actor page, and his IMDb, but his behind the voice actor page, and I saw it on there. I was like, oh really? Striker? He voiced Striker in MK9? Like, it's cool and all, but like, Um, you know, MK9 was good. I played it. I played it a bit, but I don't know. I just Striker was like that lower character, and you never really think about it. And I'm sure a lot of you might be surprised to see this on here. That oh wow, that's it's such a bizarre thing to see it like just randomly appear. Maybe if he was like a bigger named character or something, then it'd be easier to recognize and link with the two. But like linking like Steve Bloom with Scorpion or Steve Bloom with Sub Zero or Patrick Seitz with Scorpion for a couple of the games, like those are very easy for me to remember. But remembering that Matt Mercer was Striker in one game, it's whatever. Um, I the only reason why I'm putting Silver down here is I haven't gotten to this part yet. I'm sure once I get to and meet Silver Fullbuster, I'll be able to like snap to him like, yeah, that's Matt Mercer without even knowing it or without like ever looking it up or something. I could probably like realize that it was him from his voice, and I'm sure his performance is great and the character is great and everything, is easy to link to the two, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I don't know much about the character. I don't know how well, you know, like what he does. Does he do a Jotaro voice? Does he do a Levi voice? Does he do a Leorio voice? You know, I just don't know exactly what he how well it goes or how well I could link the two. Like think Fairy Tale. Oh, Matt Mercer in Fairy Tale. I know, of course, that's Silver Buster. I probably couldn't think of the character linking the two. It's not something that's easily linked for me. SBO is, oh, that's him, because I never actually realized it until after I found out that Matt Mercer voiced him, and then I was playing the game, or I was playing the demo uh, at a Best Buy, because they just occasionally have like game demos things that you can do. And I was playing it, and the sound was coming through, and I was playing his SBO just because I knew it was Matt Mercer. And I started hearing his voice, and I was like, oh, that's him. Like, he does have, like, that nice little Matt Mercer voice to him. And it is really cool, and just hilarious to think that this little, little purple chameleon, as it's called, or, like, a fuchsia color, like, oh, yeah, that's him. It's just so strange, because it's kind of that weird disconnect of seeing all like the more humanoid or like human-like, and then an alien there and Hit, but all these like very human characters, all like very similar in appearance as you can see, other than Sinbad and maybe Yamato. Like they're all like the very like, I mean he is like a toughened character and all that, but like everybody has like a very like similar appearance and like similar voices to the ones that he uses the same voice for. Just seeing SBO and knowing the game and the franchise is almost like a weird disconnect for me. But then like knowing it and hearing the voice, I'm like, yeah, I know it's him, but it's not one of the first things that I think of. Like, yeah, Matt Mercer is SBO, the chameleon from Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Whoa! It's nothing like that, unfortunately. Other things, it's mainly because Seijiro from SAO, I believe his first appearance, I don't know if he was in the first season, but he is in the second season very early on. He's like one of the government guys who tries to get Kirito to help them with the whole like issue in SAO 2. I didn't watch a lot of SAO 2. I watched the first few episodes. I was never a fan of it, but I did like immediately. I think I have to put him in. Yeah, that's him, because I did like hear the voice, and even just like the few lines that he had in the episodes, I did immediately know, oh yeah, that's Matt Mercer, just because especially at the time of it, I'm a huge fan of Matt Mercer, so getting to hear his voice in it, I was like, immediately recognized it, and then I went on to Behind the Voice and I confirmed it, and I was like, wow, that's crazy, because I mean crazy first off that I can just recognize from like one line. I can go, oh yeah, that's Matt Mercer, just from hearing a line of dialogue that had like 3 words in it. What does that tell you about me, really? But just hearing the voice is great. I just kind of, maybe if I was a bigger fan of SAO and I could see more with him, but his voice is definitely easily recognizable in this role. He has more of like a Leorio, that kind of like his more natural voice with like a little bit more spunk to it almost. But it is a good voice. Next up, Sinbad, it's also that. I first heard his voice as Sinbad in Gift of the Magi Adventures of Sinbad, which I think is technically, which isn't the first Magi to come out. I think it's actually one of the newer ones, and it is a Netflix original. If you want to see it, it's actually really good. And I think it's supposed to be kind of like a prequel, kind of to show you like how Sinbad came up to the way he is. And it's really good in my opinion. And hearing his voice at that time, I heard it and I immediately thought, oh, that's Leorio's voice. And then I looked up and I was like, yeah, that is Leorio's voice. It is Matt Mercer. So it was that kind of same thing of like, because I watched Hunter x Hunter first, I could really easily recognize these two voices, just because he kind of has that same like calmer, closer to his normal voice type of thing. And then it was really easy to start hearing his normal voice when I started watching Critical Role, which is his D&D stuff, which also should go watch if you enjoy D&D stuff. You know, they've been doing it for a while. It's great. So speaking of that, I had to put Leorio up there in iconic just because this is one of his bigger roles and something that he's voiced a lot of. And you know, it's kind of because of this that made me be able to recognize his voice outside of his Jotaro voice, out of his more like gruff, like badass voice almost. So it's kind of that very easy to piece together all the different like aspects of it, and then knowing his normal voice, it's very easy for me to link this down to here, kind of in this. I'm not too sure about here because I don't like. I kind of remember Striker's voice, but I don't remember it. It's probably not too similar to that, but it also isn't to the degree of Jotaro. And I don't know what Gray's is, but I'm sure, or Gray Silver's is, but I'm sure it's probably in the, more the realm of Jotaro, or at least more in the realm of like, you know, it'd probably be close to say Jotaro, maybe even Law, like that less of the gruff badass, but definitely within that realm. But yeah, Leorio, especially being in Hunter x Hunter, which is such a big anime, gives it such an easy time for people to be able to hear his voice, especially if you watch dub, and be able to recognize it elsewhere at some point. So it definitely is pretty high up there. Same with Leon Kennedy. I am a fan of the Resident Evil series, and you know, Leon Kennedy was like one of the original kind of like badasses of the game in a sense. So getting to know, like, hear his voice now, because you know, playing it like a bit younger and then playing it now and having him in different mediums, of course, hearing it and going, oh yeah, that's Matt Mercer to this point is, you know, it's such an exceptional thing to be able to go from like the hearing the voice young as like as a kid, and then now hearing the voice here as a, you know, 20 odd year old, as if I'm older than 20. I'm 20. You know, being a 20-year-old who hears his voice in all the mediums and going, oh, that's really cool that they get to have, you know, Matt Mercer was like such a cool character that I'm sure is a lot of people's, you know, childhood, or at least they were like more, you know, a bit older years, like teenage years, when they were playing Resident Evil, I think 2 and 3, I think he was in, or 3 and 4, something like that, maybe 6. I don't even remember all the miscellaneous ones that Leon is in, but getting to hear it, and I'm sure, you know, I'm sure people who will like see this will go, oh yeah, Leon Kennedy, and then they'll go back and like, you know, hear some of these other voices, and you'll be able to also hear, you know, Leon's voice in Leorio's voice, or maybe you can hear Leorio's voice in Leon's voice, and it's great to be able to link all these different characters. And it is a lot easier. Like, the reason why some of these characters are like, why, you know, Sinbad isn't up, you know, iconic, is because I don't hear Sinbad's voice in Leorio's voice. I hear Leorio's voice in Sinbad's voice. I hear Leorio in Seijiro, because I hear Leorio, you know, his voice is more recognizable to me. And when I think of this voice style that he does for them, I immediately think of Leorio. I don't go back and think of them or any other character who he has a similar voice to Leorio for. Same thing with Jotaro, you know. The voice that he does for Jotaro, it immediately, I can hear this in McCree, I can hear it in Hit, I can hear it in Levi. Like, that is, like, when I think of Matt Mercer, I only think of these three characters. Like, it is immediately Matt Mercer. Is that Matt Mercer? That is Jotaro Kujo, Trafalgar Law, and McCree from Overwatch. Especially because, you know, watching so much One Piece as of late, and Law, not even just because Law is voiced by Matt Mercer, but because Law is such a good character. He is my favorite character in One Piece, so getting to know, like, yeah, he's also voiced by my favorite voice actor of all time. You know, getting to hear his voice and all his, you know, mannerisms, and just knowing that it is, like, it's so easily recognizable. Jotaro was the first time, or McCree was the first time that I got to hear his kind of like lower, more like non-Leorio voice, I guess you could say. And then like getting to hear his voice, and I heard it and I never recognized it, and I started watching JoJo, and I heard JoJo's voice, and I was like, oh, that's amazing! Like, it's a really good voice. And then I was playing Overwatch at the time, and I was like, McCree sounds a lot like Jotaro. And I looked it up, and of course, they're the same voice actor. So, it was of course recognizing that Jotaro's voice was in McCree's voice and not the other way around. That gives Jotaro that slight edge over it, just because Jotaro was always there in my head, and I was such a big fan of JoJo and such a big fan of One Piece, and not as big a fan of Overwatch right now, just because I kind of fell out of Overwatch maybe like a year and a half ago or so. I still, see some stuff about it, and maybe when Overwatch 2 comes out, I'll play it. Maybe if you guys want to see me play it, then I will, but for now, until it comes out, it'll just be off in the distance, especially with all the Blizzard stuff. So, there is the trio that will always be, that is my big three from Matt Mercer is Jotaro Kujo, Trafalgar D. Waterlaw, and Jesse McCree. Next, I'm sure a lot of people, especially if you're watching the English dub, you might see Levi Ackerman as way higher. The reason why Levi isn't up there and is that Matt Mercer is, yes, his voice is instantaneously recognizable for me, and that is an easy, clear, is that Matt Mercer moment. But when I think of Attack on Titan, first off, I read the manga first, so I never really linked the two right off the bat. And then also, thinking of it, I always think of Bryce Papenbrook as Eren before I think of Matt Mercer as Levi, just because, of course, that is like the main character and is a lot more recognizable. And I also, I love both of them. I love Bryce's voice as Eren Yeager and Matt's voice as Levi. It's just thinking of it all, I always go to Eren Yeager just because it is the main character. I know you might go, well, you're thinking of Law as this, but I also love Law way more than I like Levi Ackerman. And I also like Law, Law more than Luffy as the main character. But I kind of like early Eren especially. Later Eren is kind of whatever, but I also didn't care too much for the later part of AOT, and I'm sure that'll get me lynched by some people, but I was never a fan of AOT. I read it. It was good, don't get me wrong, but people put AOT on a pedestal, and I still don't understand why. Is it good? Yes. Is it like God tier? No. And of course, I am somebody who puts like JoJo and One Piece up there, but that's my opinion, of course. Is AOT good? Yeah. Is it like top 10 for me? Maybe. I'm sure at some point I'll go over like a top 10 anime that I've seen, or top, anime / manga. Maybe at some point I'll do that, and we'll see if AOT is on there. But he is definitely easily recognizable, especially his scream, his Kenny scream. If you only watched subbed, only heard the Japanese voice for the when he screams Kenny, definitely go and listen to it in English. It is amazing. For Kaguya, I immediately recognized it. It's just more or less the fact that it's kind of in like the same area as like Leorio and Seijuro. It's just the fact that he doesn't have a lot to do in the first season, at least, of Demon Slayer. I'm sure as we get farther into it and there's more to do with him and there's more time to really get to hear his voice, it'll really increase in my rating, and maybe I'll remake this list with a few more characters and a few more slots to be able to put people in. But for now, it's not really the fact that he doesn't, his voice is, I believe, like a Leorio, like a full section of these four right here is the Leorio, Seijuro, Sinbad, Kaguya. They're all, that same voice in my head, but of course, they all, link into Leorio first. So he is there. Hit is up there. A lot of bias because I love the Dragon Ball series, and once I heard Hit's voice, I immediately heard Jotaro and McCree in it, just because of that kind of, more, silent badass almost. So it was always that, real quick, yeah, I know who this voice actor is. This is spectacular. I know it's Matt. I know it's Jotaro Kujo is now in my Dragon Ball, and he's stopping time for a matter of seconds and then punching people. And also just a really interesting parallel to make, kind of like a segue here, just to talk about voice actors more. It's great that the main like Jotaro has the ability, has like basically his whole shtick, is to create like a purple character who can punch extremely fast, do a lot of damage like that, and is in the end able to overcome an enemy who has the ability to stop time. Of course, he does it by also being able to stop time eventually. Spoilers for part 3 of Jojo. Sorry. And his main antagonist is a character who has the ability to hit pretty hard, stop time. Pretty cool, right? So now Jotaro in Dragon Ball Super voices the character, Purple, same as Star Platinum, has the ability to stop time and punches extremely fast. Extremely deadly, very precise. While also in Dragon Ball Super, a character whose whole shtick basically is just pure strength by himself in a sense, and has the ability to eventually overcome time. He does it just from pure strength. The voice of these two is Matt Mercer. The voice of the antagonist of Dear Brando and of Jiren in Dragon Ball Super is Patrick Seitz. So I just think it's kind of like an interesting parallel to see, like, in Jotaro and in Dragon Ball Super, in JoJo, their characters were like flipped to where it was the time stopper in Dragon Ball Super versus the one who can beat the time stopper in JoJo, and then in Dragon Ball Super the time stopper is Patrick Seitz in this one, and the one who beats the time stopper is Patrick Seitz in this one. Just an interesting little parallel there. Use that how you will. And lastly, Yamato. He also, is that it is kind of this list just because I got into watching Naruto very late. Once again, this is one of the ones that I read first, so I never really thought that this would be Matt Mercer. It is very interesting to know that it is, and it's actually really cool, and hearing the voice I can easily recognize it as it, but I'm sure for people who like loved Naruto and watched a lot of it, they immediately would put this higher from just the fact that it is, it's the same reason why I put Law all the way up here. It's just that, and Hit all the way up here, it's just that love of the anime itself. So I'm sure people who love Naruto more than some of these other animes or more than some of the games, they'll put him a lot higher solely for the fact that it is the anime itself. But with the fact that I got into it a lot later, I watched all of Super and I'm watching One Piece now, so there's some recency bias with Law, but getting later into Naruto, mainly Shippuden of course, Yamato just kind of falls a little bit shorter in the end for me. He is still very, very high up there, and it is definitely one of Matt Mercer's most iconic roles, but that also partially is because of the anime itself. So, but hey, this is my list. Not exactly like in order, like it is by order of the categories itself, but in the actual slots themselves, there is no order. It's not like I like Crom more than I like. I mean, if the order was here, it'd be Hit at the front. But like the order they're in, there is no like actual preference to that. I just put them in, usually towards the back when I was putting them in. If they move somebody over, if I put them a little bit further in the middle, there was no rhyme or reason towards that. Jotaro would be number one though, like just number one. He is Matt Mercer. Like when I think Matt Mercer is Jotaro Kujo. So there's that. But this is my list. If you disagree with it, you should be able to find this on Tier Maker. So you should be able to just look up characters voiced by Matt Mercer. And you should be able to see it created by this guy right here. Whoa, CodeBear528 on Twitter. You can follow me. I don't really post anything on there, but I'm sure if I ever had a reason to post more stuff, then I would. Like when I start streaming, I'll probably post, that I'm streaming then. But hey, if you want to go follow me, do. That'd be pretty cool. If you don't want to follow me, that's also pretty cool. As you see, I have 3 followers. I don't do anything, so it's not like you're missing out. But yeah, that'll do it for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, then consider hitting the like button and commenting down below what you guys did enjoy so I continue doing it to continue making the videos as well as I have been. If you guys didn't like the video, then go ahead and dislike it and comment down below what you didn't like so that I improve upon it and make the videos better for y'all. If you guys want to know when I upload, then the best way to know is by subscribing. But that does it for this video. Until next time, bye guys.